Assalamualaikum. We are from group 13. My name is Alia Tasnim binti DAUD. My group mate is NATIELA SYUHADA binti NAZER and KHADIJAH binti ZULBAKRI. Today we will present about the history of Fukushima nuclear disaster and prevention.
On March 11, 2011, the largest earthquake ever recorded in Japan caused a massive devastation, and the ensuing tsunami devastated the Tohoku region of northeastern Honshu. On top of the already horrific destruction and loss of life, the natural disaster also gave rise to a nuclear disaster at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. The Fukushima disaster is considered the second worst nuclear disaster in history, forcing the relocation for over 100,000 people. During the emergency, each of the three operational nuclear reactors at the Fukushima plant shut down successfully, but the backup power of cooling system failed. As a result, residual heat caused a full failed roads in all three reactors to partially melt down. As a crew searched the rubble for survival and the nation reeled for the earthquake and ensuing tsunami, the nuclear disaster unfolded over the course of several days. Reactors 1 and 3 exploded on March 12 and 14, respectively, prompting the government to evacuate everyone within a 20-kilometer radius. Another explosion in the building housing Reactor 2 on March 15 released even more radiation, and thousands of people left their homes as workers used helicopters, water cannons, and seawater pumps to try to cool the overheating facility. The full extent of the fallout became apparent over the ensuing months, with the government eventually evacuating all residents within a 30 kilometers radius of the plant. No deaths were initially attributed to the incident, although this was a little comfort to the 154,000 who were evacuated, or the loved one of the more than 18,000 people who lost their lives as a result of the earthquake and tsunami. Some have suggested that such a large evacuation was not necessary, as radiation level appeared to have dropped below what was expected in the immediate wake of the incident. Though many were able to return to their homes, a 371 square kilometer difficult to return zone remained evacuated as of 2021, and the true toll may not be known for decades. In 2018, the government announced that former plant worker who had served during the meltdown was the first death officially attributed to the radiation from the disaster, which is today considered second only to Chernobyl in the ranking of infamous nuclear incident.
There are 5 steps to prevent another Fukushima. First step that I have found is stabilize the electricity supply system. The Fukushima nuclear accident is said to have been caused by an unprecedented natural disaster. What really caused the accident, however, was that the power plant simply ran out of electricity. Offsite power was cut off by the earthquake and tsunami, on-site emergency diesel generator malfunctioned, and batteries were empty within hours. With no electricity, there was no way to operate the emergency core cooling system for the reactors. The water inside the reactors boiled away, exposing the fuel, which then overheated and reacted with steam to produce combustible hydrogen gas. Hydrogen explosion tore through the reactor containment buildings and released radioactive gases, including caesium-137, the principal radioactive isotope released by the Chernobyl accident, from the damaged fuel. To prevent such a power loss in the future, plant operators should install multiple connections to the off-site power grid, station emergency diesel generators on high ground, and deploy plenty of mobile emergency diesel generators. Next step that I have found is store spent fuel in dry cache. The Fukushima accident was a vivid reminder that fuel storage are vulnerable when cooling system fail. Like the fuel inside the reactor cores, Some of the fuel stored in pools at Fukushima probably melted as water level dropped, releasing radioactive gases into the atmosphere. To minimize the risk of a similar situation happening again, plant operators should remove spent fuel from pools after 5 years. By that time, the fuel is cool enough to be stored in dry gas, which are sealed metal cylinders surrounded by concrete or other materials. These gas provide robust protection against physical damage and are expected to maintain their integrity for hundreds of years or more. More than 400 fuel assemblies, about 3% of the total amount of spent fuel, are already stored in dry gas at Fukushima Daiichi, and they apparently survived the earthquake and tsunami without any significant damage. Dry gas storage also helps to alleviate shortage of storage pool capacity, which some countries are facing. Next steps that I have found is install filter vent system. In an accident like the one at Fukushima, a filter vent system could reduce the possibility of containment building explosion by releasing radioactive gases to the atmosphere through a large filter system. This system traps the most dangerous radioactive species, including caesium-137, and prevents them from spreading beyond the containment building. A group of nuclear engineers at the University of California originally suggested this idea in 1977, and Frank von Hippel and Jan Beyer reintroduced the idea in the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists in 1982. Some countries, including France, Sweden, and Germany, have installed filter vent systems at their reactors, but Japan, the United States, and many other countries with nuclear power plants have not adopted them.
Next is prevent sabotage at nuclear facilities. Even without a natural disaster such as an earthquake followed by a tsunami, a Fukushima-like nuclear accident can occur at any nuclear power plant that relies on water for cooling. A terrorist attack on a plant's emergency core cooling system, for example, could have catastrophic results. The Fukushima accident implicitly shows the overlap between nuclear safety and nuclear security concerns, and these concerns should be addressed at the 2012 Seoul Nuclear Security Summit. After the terrorist attack of September 11, 2001, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission (NRC) reviewed security standards for nuclear power plants and approved new regulation in December 2008. These regulations include specific guidelines about what would be done to ensure that necessary security measures do not compromise plant safety, prevent theft or diversion of plutonium-bearing mines oxide (MOX) fuel, prevent cyber attacks, respond to an aircraft attack, mitigate the effect of large explosion and fire, implement more rigorous programs for authorizing personnel access, strengthen security personnel training and qualification, and exchange physical security. Regulations like those developed by NRC should be implemented at nuclear power plants worldwide. Lastly, steps to prevent a Fukushima nuclear disaster is ratify a treaty to prohibit military attacks. At Fukushima, water continues to leak from spent fuel pools that were damaged by hydrogen explosion in mid-March. This poses a threat of radioactive gas released from damaged food in the pools. A military attack on a nuclear facility could also cause this kind of damage, radioactive release. The consequence could be grave and could be spread beyond national boundaries. Therefore, it is urgent that global communities ratify a treaty prohibiting the use of military forces against civilian nuclear facilities in IAEA member states. India and Pakistan already have a bilateral arrangement not to attack each other's nuclear facilities, entered into force in 1991. The arrangement defines nuclear facilities as nuclear power and research reactor, full fabrication, uranium enrichment, isotope separation and reprocessing facilities, as well as any other installation with fresh or irradiated nuclear fuel and material in any form and establishment storing significant quantities of radioactive materials. A multilateral non-attack treaty should be on agenda for the Seoul Nuclear Security Summit. That's all from us. Thank you.